To call the meeting of the Narragansett Regional School Committee to order, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Yep. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Tonight's school committee business is it behind me? No. It is a community forum. It is to announce and to have public comments on the District Reorganization Advisory Committee. So the advisory committee turned its results to Dr. Casavant, and at this time I'd like to turn the meeting over to Dr. Casavant to present his slideshow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so I want to welcome everyone here tonight. It's the intention to go through what the Reorganization Committee findings or recommendations and suggestions are, and we've done so hopefully in a quick and quick manner, hopefully, and so we'll get going. So, first I want to thank the committee again. There was a lot of hard work here. There was a grand total of 18 folks who were assigned to the committee, 9 from Templeton, 9 from Phillipston. There was a lot of hard work. I think probably the hardest part of the work was the conversation at hand. Truthfully, is to look at all sides of an issue and to come to some type of an agreement in terms of what would be presented here tonight. So what is an advisory committee? It's important, I think, to flesh that out, that the advisory committee is a collection of individuals who bring unique knowledge and skills which augment the knowledge and skills of formal board of directors, in this case to be the school committee, in order to more effectively guide the organization. The advisory committee serves to make only recommendations and to provide key information and perspective to, in this case, the school committee. And the advisory committee plays an important public relations role as well as providing a program staff with a fresh perspective on a given subject matter. Specifically, this committee was formed by the school committee to gather information from stakeholder members to revisit the current reconfiguration, see how best provide a comprehensive education to the students of Narragansett, and providing recommendations based on a group findings of the school committee for their consideration. So, with that, 6 meetings were held over a period of 3 months. And I think this is an understatement, but as you can imagine, many questions arose at these meetings. Our first task was to look at what we coined as the original plan. So, the original plan really, ultimately, is the default plan. Once the Templeton Center, the new Templeton Center School is to be built, there is a natural configuration of students that would take place regardless. It is my hope, I would think that in the planning of this back in 13, 14 years ago, that at least in the beginning stages this was considered. I don't know that. I honestly, as I shared with the organization committee, there's no documentation that really went into looking past the actual building of the school. So, in essence, the original plan by default. But the original plan calls for that all Templeton K-5 elementary students will attend the new Templeton Center Elementary School. All Phillipston students, K through 5 elementary, will attend Phillipston Elementary. All students in grades 6 through 12 from both towns will attend, of course, Narragansett Regional Middle High School. And just as we make sure that we are all on the same page, all pre-K students will attend the new Templeton Center Elementary School. And for those who may not know, our pre-K students currently are educated in Phillipston, regardless of town. So it's important to understand what the enrollment is, as it was noted or certified on October 1st. And so what we need to know is that Templeton, which currently resides in the back hallway of the middle school, has 172 students, kindergarten through first grade. Baldwinville Elementary School, grades 2 to 4, 286 students. Phillipston Elementary School, 96 students, K through 4. 83 of them are pre-K, for a grand total of 179. Middle school currently has 464 students, and the high school sits at 343 students. So what the reconfiguration would do is that the new Templeton Center Elementary would house or educate, using today's numbers, 556 students, K through 5. 83 of them would be pre-K. The Phillipston Elementary School would have 115 students, grades K through 5. Middle school would lose its fifth grade, I should say, to the elementaries, and would have 347 students, and the high school would, using today's numbers, would stay the same at 343, grand total. This is how the district, when we look at this, the advisory committee the job was to poke holes in the original plan. That was their job. We have to make sure that the advisory, that the original plan was viable, that after 13 years, it still made sense. Populations have changed. Things have changed. So it was the job of the advisory committee to look at that and to come up with pros and cons, so to speak. Okay? So, and just make sure that the plan itself was still good for kids 13 years later. So, with that being said, the reorganization committee came up with the strengths of the original plan. Obviously, the strengths was that it was the original plan. The residents of Phillipston voted in 2005, non-binding vote, not to support a regional elementary school. That is absolutely, on record. And we, of course, we have that information. Elementary age students would be educated in the town that they live in. That is absolutely a positive. The new elementary school is designed to support pre-K students from both towns, and bathrooms in the classrooms, age development appropriate, playgrounds, etc. for pre-K. And also a pretty important aspect is that as long as you have elementary students, one-stop drop-off and pickup. That's important. So, with that said, we went to look at some of the, these are the strengths. We had to look at what the challenges were as well. So if I could go. That's all right, Susan, you're doing fine. If you like this presentation, I came up with it. If you do not, it's Susan's. That's how this goes. All right. So the challenges of the original plan. A great deal, obviously, has changed educationally in the past 13 years. Student enrollment, I just talked about that, financial stability, staffing patterns, etc. It would require the hiring, or at least we initially thought it would require, at least hiring of 3 additional teachers to provide equitable offerings for both elementary schools. I want to stop here for a second. If you have 2 elementary schools in a district, and they educate obviously the same grade levels, services have to be equitable, have to be. There's no way around that. Even if it wasn't statute, it's just fundamentally right to offer whatever you're going to offer in one elementary to the other. There's an asterisk by this because we've been working very hard, and I'm going to identify them later, in terms of this was a major financial hurdle that the reorganization committee was having trouble with. And really, it was the impetus to a lot of what some of our solutions might be. But we think that we actually figured out a solution to this. Of course, it happened on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of vacation. So, again, I'm going to identify those folks and what we're talking about here in a minute. The reorganization committee was worried about the facility inequities, state-of-the-art versus what we call conventional. Phillipston staff to student ratio is not cost-effective. If you do a simple breakdown of just literally dividing the number of students by the number of teachers, on an average, there would be inequity there. And the addition of at least one extra bus run, which not only is a financial concern, it also might provide longer runs in general overall. So, when we start looking at this, the major issue, we started looking at this schedule. I do have the schedule. We'll post it later. I'll explain it as best I can. But in order to make this simple, in order for teachers to either have lunch or have a prep period, those students have to go someplace. Okay? So we call them it's a unified art schedule. So if they're not, say, with Mrs. Smith, they are in art, PE, or health, or one of the other unified arts. It's how every schedule works. Currently, we share between 3 elementaries the unified arts teachers. And we have that down to a science at this point in time. There's a lot of running around, but it's done very effectively and efficiently. Once we looked at how the new Templeton Center was going to be reconfigured, somewhere close to 500 and some odd kids, K through 5, we figured out, or at least we initially figured out, that given the number of unified arts teachers that we have, we could no longer share those teachers with Phillipston going over there to do the unified arts at Phillipston. No matter how we worked out the schedule, we could not figure out a way to do it effectively across the board. This became an issue. Building principals worked on this. We all worked on it together, and we had a lot of great ideas. And so in the end, what happened was that 3 really good ideas that did not solve the issue finally came together to what we think is going to actually is a breakthrough. I'm going to Heather Sue Braley, who's one of our PE teachers, Nat North, and Shantae. Nat North is the principal, of Baldwinville Elementary, and Shantae, Chelsea needs no introduction, but she's the principal down at Phillipston. They combined these 3 great ideas and figured out that if, in fact, question 1, can we have 2 PE classes happen at the same time at the new elementary school? Good question. We called the architect. Architect said it's a normal size gym and it has a divider. Okay, check. There was a problem with the schedule because normally how we had it initially set up is that if you were in Mrs. Smith's first grade classroom, you had art on Tuesday, for example, at a set time. So the schedule was static. It didn't rotate. Well, we had to rotate the schedule. But we rotated both of them, it didn't work. Meaning if we rotated Templeton Centers and we rotated Phillipston, it didn't work. So we had to make 1 static, 1 rotation. Through the combination of all of those 3 very smart people, thankfully, who work for me, they figured this out basically on a Saturday afternoon, starting a vacation, and we'll go through that. We didn't think of it before, because I don't think we were thinking the right way, see the trees to the forest type of thing. So we'll get there. That was a major hurdle, and I have to thank them again, because I think it'd be a harder row to hoe at this point in time. So basically, that's how we got there for that piece. Now, there are still some other issues. One, if you look over the scheduling difficulties, student-teacher ratio at PMS, that's still going to be an issue. Class sizes are really small. Now, at BES, they're very large, depending on what grade. I'm looking to Mr. North, but I think 3rd grade's anywhere between 25 and 26 kids on the average. 4th grade is somewhere is the same exactly, 25, 26. That is not healthy. That's not what we want. We'll hope to alleviate that once we are able to do some things maybe over at the new building. We are packed in pretty tight there over at BES. But at Phillipston currently, and again, I'd have to look at my cheat sheet, but we have a classroom or a couple classrooms under 20. And I think that's fair to say. We have to balance that off and make that equitable to a certain extent, but not certainly go to the point where we're at 25 and 26. That's just not good. That's just not good education. It's just not good. It's not good, period. So we think we can manage that a little bit better. By the way, the reason why I have school choice up there, well, we may not even have this option with all the actual residents we have moving back or moving either back or into the district. We gained 10 residents over April vacation. at the elementary level, between K and 4. That is great, but it's great. Let's just put it that way. Welcome, all of you. All right. So that's why I say school choice. We have 44 applications for school choice currently right now. We can't take any of them in Templeton, not a one. We're too full. We're too full at the elementary levels. Is there a possibility that we'll be able to take a few school choice kids here and there down at Phillipston? Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. Be a good opportunity. Oop, I'm not sure what happened. Susan has such beautiful children. Thank you. So also the state-of-the-art versus conventional building. The town of Phillipston has very graciously and always provided, in terms of, well, I'll call it its general maintenance fund, if you'll allow me. They've increased that amount twice, and I've only been here 2 years. So I'm understanding that they're going to increase it again by $10,000 as I look out to. Okay, just want to make sure that I have that for a grand total of Thank you. $35,000, of course, that has to go before the town. But that's how we're going to keep that building, moving. And it's a great building. But that's how we're going to keep it refreshed, so to speak. Okay. So moving forward, these aren't the only questions that we dealt with, believe it or not. Although it's been the biggie, and we've certainly heard the most noise from what I've just talked about. But these are the other issues that we grappled with over the 6 or 7 weeks, 3 months, pardon me, that we were together. Why is there not a regional elementary school? Well, that's easy. We've already talked about that. It was a non-binding vote, Phillipston, and that was never in the cards. And so there's your answer. Quite frankly, it's that simple. Are multi-grade or single-grade classrooms best for kids? Well, educationally, there is research based on what they call single-grade classrooms. In the state of Massachusetts, given our testing requirements, MCAS, et cetera, it is too sequential in order of the type of things that we need to teach what grade, and to put, say, a 3rd and a 4th grade together, these call them MAT classrooms, multi-age, you're not going to get away with it, and the Department of Ed may have something to say. What are the financial considerations of the original plan? Well, there are some, but the big one, I will tell you, thanks to the 3 folks that I've mentioned, a big chunk of what we were concerned about, the cost of 3 teachers, it's been alleviated. We are going to have to address the guidance counselor, a full-time guidance counselor, that type of thing, but that is nothing compared to what we were worried about when we started looking at this. Is bringing the 5th grade to the new school the best option? Really what the question, when we kind of grappled with this, is why don't you just leave the 5th grade where it is? Well, one, I'm not sure that folks of Templeton would like to build a brand, this is me speaking, I don't speak for the town of Templeton, but I have to imagine if you build a brand new school that you don't want 3 or 4 classrooms with nobody in them. If the 5th grade were to come here, there would be a bunch of empty classrooms. I'm just going to assume that would be one concern. 2, the MSBA did in fact use the numbers that were projected 4 or 5 years ago, which included the 5th grade in its formula, and not only in terms of the reimbursement, but the floor space. So I would say to you, so there's just the money part of it. Educationally, I will tell you that if you're worried about grade configuration, you're concerned about or interested, if what they say in the literature about this is that it really doesn't matter what grade configuration you put any of your kids in. As long as you have good principals and good teachers, you're going to be okay. The 5th grade at the middle school, though, specifically, has some problems with adjustment. Keeping them at the elementary, at least some of the information says that's the best move. So hopefully we've answered that question. What is best educationally for kids? Well, that's changed a little, right? So when we were thinking about this was going to be all this money for these teachers, we were thinking about, well, educationally, does it make sense to change to reconfigure the entire dynamic? Keep the pre-K and K together at Phillipston and put all the 1 through 5 at Templeton. Just educationally, did it matter? Well, sure. There's plenty of research that would suggest that keeping all the grades together, common planning time, sharing of resources, especially in communities that find it hard or have issues with money. We all have money issues in this area. But the fact of the matter is this changed dramatically once we figured out the schedule. I'll be very candid. The financial consideration cost became less of a factor once we figured that out. So the other considerations is the middle school schedule. What will the middle school look like without a 5th grade? Actually, it'll probably look a little bit better. we'll be able to schedule a lot easier. To schedule a 3-grade configuration is a heck of a lot easier than scheduling a 4-grade configuration. And so that'll leave us a lot of opportunities to do different things. And so that'll be a positive. Middle school administration configuration has been very widely discussed, at least as I was interviewing here and during my initial interviews. It was considered, or thought anyway, that the initial administration would change, whether it be would be a principal or there wouldn't be an assistant principal, something to that effect. The reorganization committee was pretty pretty adamant about, just given the fact that, you know, middle school is middle school, that you're going to need as much help as you can possibly on a good day, and just given all of the things that we need to do with evaluations and just general angst of young teenagers, it's a good thing to keep the configuration as we have it. Special education services caseload, yeah, that'll be a consideration, but we won't know what the caseload is until we actually are on the ground. We won't know that. And special education isn't always static. We don't know who will be on IEPs, who will need services on a date, too many years in advance, so we'll have to look at that when we get closer. Busing. We don't want to leave busing at the very end of this, but I will say to you, quite frankly, that that's an expensive issue. We're trying to figure out what it's going to look like, but until we know where they live, we don't know what our busing is going to look like. Being a regional, we are mandated by statute to bus all students. So if 2 kids move wherever the furthest region from this school is, and they do so tomorrow, Anne Marie is going to have to figure out a way to reroute some of those buses, or a bus, to pick them up. Well, we don't know what that's going to entail until we know, but we're trying very hard because that has some pretty significant financial implications. Okay? All right, so here are the infamous options. Okay. So let's revisit what this reorganization committee was supposed to do. Their job was to poke holes in the original plan. They were to see if it was viable. They were to come with either recommendations, considerations, and bring it to the school committee. That was their job. Their job was to make some type of recommendation otherwise. So, given that, we looked at the possibility of all preschool and kindergarten students, regardless of where they live, attend Phillipston Memorial Elementary School. And we've already talked about what the research said, and I've already told you that, this becomes almost a non-issue in terms of the financial implication. Every 1st and 5th grader, regardless of where they live, would attend Templeton Center Elementary. We just talked about that, and what that would entail. And all students, of course, 6 through 12 would come up, would be here at the middle of high school. So, like we wanted to do, we came up with pros and cons. No? Okay, here's the strengths. Sure, educate all grade levels together. This is just the educational piece to this. We found that would be a strength. Ability to consolidate instructional resources. As money tightens, it's easier to consolidate whatever resources that you have if everybody's in one spot. State-of-art learning for all students. No-brainer. We can easily do that, and that would certainly be a strength of the alternate plan. Support the regional school district model, not regional. It just supports the model itself. Cost effective. Well, more people, more services in one place, easier to manage, more cost effective. Okay? The challenges, well, repurposing a grade or specific space at the new school. If it's built for a pre-K or a kindergarten student and somehow have to repurpose that room for a 5th grader, things might be a little smaller. Urinals, sinks, etc. Could they get away with, could you do it? Sure. But when you build a new school, you expect the kids that you're paying to be in that room, right? Potential dual location drop-off pickup issues. Well, so all of a sudden, if you have a kindergartner or a pre-K and you have a 3rd grader, you're going to Phillipston and Templeton on a daily basis, and that just doesn't seem like a lot of fun. By the way, 2 building transitions for students. Transitions is big in the literature. More transitions, the harder it is for kids. Try to minimize these transitions as much as possible between schools. Length of bus rides, both for Phillipston and Templeton, we think that would raise havoc with busing. We do. We think it might help, but it might wreak havoc at the same time. It all depends on where kids live. And so, politically charged issue is a really nice way of saying that the community didn't support this. So this group of 9 each, it became very uncomfortable at times to discuss this, when we discussed what the political issues might be. And what the political issues were is that nobody really wants anything to do with this alternative plan. When I was talking to the reorg, no kidding. But the charge of the reorg committee was to poke holes in the original plan. They had to come up with something. They had to come up with an alternative, something to be considered, if nothing else. And by the way, we were very clear about this. We weren't the end-all, be-all. I mean, think about it. We were together for, what, 3-4 months. In 2 questions, we figured out the scheduling. We asked the right people at the right time, thinking the right way, and we figured out the scheduling thing. So it's about, the more important the issue, the more people you should communicate with, hence this forum. And so this was done, obviously, to push the committee and the committee's thinking on this matter. That was their role. That is exactly what they did. And the important role, the advisory provided the school committee with a fresh perspective on this given subject matter. That was the role of the reorg committee. And that's what they've done. They have presented a lot of provocative issues, some that are just no-brainers, but they were able to work through a lot of different scenarios together, which I think is fantastic. So, all of these strengths are not only, and the weaknesses, by the way, are supported in the research. The negatives, they didn't know this. I'm going to assume they didn't know this. I shouldn't say that. I don't think they knew this. That's what I'm going to say. But the positives that they pointed out are absolutely supported in the literature as being positive for education, positive for kids. Okay? Read any dissertation, you're going to read one thing both ways. You're going to find research that says a pro and a con to something. The negatives, school committee, I will tell you, were also supported as negatives in the literature. Transitions, limit the amount of transitions, long time on buses. These things were all considered negatives. And that's, I think, how well that the reorganization committee itself took the time to think about these things. And so I think that has to be said, because the question was asked about what was the research, what was the data. Like I said, so again, it's a really nice way of saying it does not have community support, right? The alternative plan. That is also supported in the research. It doesn't matter, just like the grade configuration, whether you have a K through 5, K through 8 seem to be the big deal now, K through 12s. It doesn't matter, any of those configurations. In the end, it boils down to how good your teachers are, period, and how good your principals are, period. It does not matter how the configuration of grades are set. The good news for this community is that we have excellent teachers and we have excellent administrators. And so we're in good hands. So to that end, in the end, I will say that the reorganization committee fulfilled its charge of providing the school committee, always keeping children in the forefront, with feasible alternatives given on the possible changes, which they can become possible given what we found out about the schedule. Notice I didn't say popular. Not once did I ever say popular. That wasn't the charge. That wasn't the charge because I think we would have all agreed that if nothing, it highlighted the community's commitment to its elementary schools, the physical buildings that exist, and most importantly, their children. And that is, of course, the most important thing. And so what we also learned, I will tell you personally, that I learned perception versus reality. So if we can, this is how, like on Facebook, like how I think everyone sees me or thinks of this idea. And this is how I think it all transpired. So here's, if in fact, if I may, Madam Chair, if I became grumpy at these questions, I was, because things were levied not only at yours truly, and I'm used to that, that's my job, but the reorganization committee, stating that decisions were made the decisions were made. Doing my interviews when I first transitioned into this district, the number one issue in this district is trust. Number one, by far. The lack of trust in every which direction. Didn't matter. Trust between teachers and staff and kids, parents, this, It was a trust issue. In order to improve trust, you have to be transparent. Period. You have to be able, no offense, to be adult enough to have tough conversations. To have conversations that are really painful to have, that go against what you may believe. We're not going to get any better, folks, unless we get better at having those conversations. At no time did 9 folks from Templeton and 9 folks from Phillipston ever agree to make a decision, because other than what to put on this slide, because their decision wasn't theirs. But I will tell you, I met 18 people who absolutely did an excellent job having a tough conversation and were able to look at things differently, although they were diametrically opposed to what was being presented. And I applaud them. I applaud all 18 of them. That was hard work, and I want to thank them for that. So let's not forget, obviously, ultimately, why we're here. And them. We have the tough conversations because of those children, right there. And so we will continue to have tough conversations, and we will dredge up the past. As long as I'm your superintendent, we will, because we're not going to get any better, and we're going to have to get better at having these conversations. So, Madam Chair, I defer.
And I thank you. All right, the purpose of this forum tonight was to hear the information on the screen and to realize that your input is why we're here tonight. There have been no decisions made. The school committee is here to listen to you and your reaction to this information that's on the board. So, according to school committee policy, anyone who would like to speak, and we have the front row empty. If there are a lot of people, we'll just take a seat and we'll go in the order that you come down. When you come down, please introduce yourself, your name, and where you live. We have school committee policy that says that discussion should be limited to 3 minutes. If anybody's reading anything or has comments, that we have a 3-minute time. You don't see a clock. You probably couldn't see it anyway with the curtains here, but there is no clock, so that time is our time. The caution I have, and I know that feelings have gotten quite fiery, but as you speak to this school committee, your objective is to give us information that we can use to make a decision. So I ask that you be very respectful in this conversation. Are there any other comments that we need? Mrs. Hughes.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just wanted to state for the record, because I've heard several people say to me that there was some rumor about closing Phillipston as a school altogether, that never once, you notice it was never in this presentation, it was never a consideration, never on the table. So if you had thoughts to come up here and question that, please know that that has never, ever been part of this discussion. So you can rest easy about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Remember my first statement, there have been no decisions made. This is a committee that was bantering information that would better allow us to open the new Templeton Elementary School and to provide for our students in all of the district the best experience. So in an effort to make decisions, I would now ask if you have input to come down front and identify yourself. We'll keep it down to 3. Thank you. Is it on?
Now it is?
Okay. It is. Great.
I was the first one to speak last time. My name is Stephanie Flynn. I'm from Phillipston. For 17 years I've lived in Phillipston, and for 15 years I lived in Baldwinville. So I have lived in 2 different parts of the school district. But I have stayed with Narragansett all those years. So 32 years of living in this school district, both in Templeton and Phillipston. Last time I spoke about what a unique Phillipston community we have, where the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts meet often after school. They walk from the school to the church or to the library. They meet in the school. When my son was a Cub Scout, they spent time taking all the recycling from the school and they took it to the transfer station. They did that for public service. They were very proud of themselves. I also talked about Edna Haley forming the program where she bugged Ken Bagelis until she won her point, and she got the library that the school would come, that all the school students would come once a month to the library. That's something else we're very proud of in Phillipston. Also, the students in the 3rd grade, Mrs. Polchapek, I think, started this. I saw her here. The 3rd grade went to the senior lunch every Christmas, and 2nd grade, I got the grade wrong. They went and sang to all the seniors at senior lunch. That was another really special thing that happened. They did the 12 Days of Christmas with every single motion with Mrs. Polchapek, and that happened forever also. So at the heart of Phillipston is that we believe in our town and our school, our library, our church, and it's all on the common. It's important to Scouting, it's important to the library, it's important to our seniors who love seeing the kids, and it's important for our cultural council where we sponsor many events. What I forgot to say last time, so I'll use my last minute to talk about, what I forgot to talk about was when my boys went to school, elementary school especially, I'd come home and I'd say, what was the best part of your day? What would your kids say? Recess. They always said recess. And I didn't have terribly athletic kids, but they loved recess. And I have to tell you, in Phillipston, we are very proud. Mrs. Gilson can tell you, we have a playground, and then we have a brand new playground, and we have a 26-acre CPC-provided park behind our school. And I don't want to be critical of your new school plan in Templeton. I know it took 20 years to get it to pass. But you are going to have a playground the size of a postage stamp. Sorry, from my perspective, it's going to be very small. And in Phillipston, we have acres and acres and acres of land, protected land that is our land, and it belongs to Phillipston. So that was the thing I forgot to say last time, but I do want to make that point. We have beautiful playground equipment. Mark Myville got it to keep our children strong. It's all about upper body strength. We have a zip line in Phillipston. I know you think we're hicks, but we have a zip line, and we have a stage in Town Hall that we're also going to have access to in another year as the elevator gets put on in Town Hall. Okay. So we have many things to be proud of. Thank you. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
All right, that's one thing. If we will keep the applause down, please, until the very end. Thank you. And if you'd like to speak, please come on down, take a front seat, and we'll get to anybody in the order that they come down. That would actually be more efficient. Thank you. Welcome.
I have a very quick question for Mrs. Pratt.
Excuse me. Would you please introduce
Oh, I'm sorry.
yourself?
I'm Jeffrey Wood. I live in Phillipston.
Thank you.
Are you in favor of Plan A or Plan B?
Excuse me. All the questions are directed to the chair.
Oh, I would like an answer from...
Well, that's not our business now.
Oh.
So you may get that information, but not at this time. Thank you.
How y'all doing? My name is Tom Douse. I am a transplant to Phillipston. I've been there 8 years, so I'm still a short-timer. Originally grew up in Fitchburg. I've been a police officer for 24 years. So I understand city government. I know how things work to some degree. I want to thank the good doctor over here for putting on that presentation. That was an excellent presentation. I do understand the concept of having uncomfortable conversations, but I don't think this one probably has to be that uncomfortable. I want to tell you the greatest thing that I feel about my community is when I drive down the street, people have to wave at me because we're so small. And that's because we're all neighbors, and we all know each other, and we all depend on each other. I've seen that small school, and I've looked forward to the fact that my daughter's going to go there. I met my wife late in life, never had any children, and now we have a 3-year-old daughter. And I'm excited about the opportunity for her to grow up in a small community like Phillipston. And I don't want to be selfish, but when I heard him talking about class sizes, I was weighing the options for my daughter, and I said, yeah, I kind of like the Phillipston plan better than the other plan. I can only tell you from my experience, when you close places down, and I come from a larger city, those gaps that get created from closing a building.
Excuse me,
well,
we're not closing a building.
Okay, I appreciate you correcting me.
There will be no closing
Okay,
buildings.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The gap from taking those kids out of that area is going to be felt. And I think that they should stay in town.
Oh,
And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sarah Leonard, Lincoln Road in Phillipston. My husband, Tom, and I moved to Phillipston, like he said, about 8 years ago, in part because we planned to have a family. I grew up in Ashby. I went to it's a similar regional school district where every town has their own elementary school. I wanted that same experience for my daughter, to grow up in a small town, go to a small town school. We, in part, chose Lincoln Road because it's near the center of town, near the school. Should the elementary school in Phillipston not stay open as the elementary school, I don't know that we would send our daughter to Templeton. I think we would probably look into school choice and look into all the area towns to decide where to send her. And I think there may be other people in that position as well. So it may be a factor of people school choicing out of the district if Phillipston does not remain open as an elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Phillipston will remain open as a elementary school. Could be early elementary, but it will be an elementary. The original plan, yes.
Okay, I'm Ruth French. I live in Phillipston. And to me, the Phillipston Memorial School is more than just a school to our town. It's the heart of our community. I don't have any children or grandchildren in elementary, but I'm proud of PMS, as I think most members of our town are. Every year, the taxpayers vote at least $10,000 for repairs and upgrades to our school. Recently, we used a portion of these funds to remove carpeting and putting flooring, and also to build some bookcases for some classrooms. These were not needed repairs, but ones that were asked to us from the principal and the teachers. The regional agreement states the town is only responsible for capital expenditures exceeding $5,000. Yet we have consistently used our funds where it is needed and don't care if it's below the $5,000 limit. There was a year that Phillipston also voted to pay for an aide or a teacher in our classroom above and beyond the required minimum. And while the state formula for school funding is unfair in that the per pupil amounts as stated in the regional agreement are not followed, Phillipston finally got the town of Templeton to agree to go into agreement where we would vote to use the per pupil amount, which would be implemented over a 3-year term. The first 2 years, Templeton paid the additional 1/3 and 2/3 of the amount. But on year 3, reneged on their agreement. Since then, Phillipston has gone by the state's formula and pays more per pupil than Templeton. Then we were asked if we wanted to join them in a regional elementary school. And Phillipston has voted more than once to not go into a regional elementary school. We love our school and intend to have our students educated in Phillipston, even though it costs us more per student. Templeton Elementary students should go to the Templeton School, and our Phillipston students should go to Phillipston Memorial. Phillipston Memorial is in need of a new roof, extensive repairs to the kitchen and basement areas. Who's to say that the townspeople will vote a debt exclusion to fund those repairs if our children are moved away from that school? I urge the school committee to leave our students in Phillipston where they belong. Do not send our students to the new Templeton Elementary School. But if you should vote to send our students to Templeton, I ask that Phillipston be given written assurances that neither Phillipston nor the district will be asked to fund any portion of the building or furnishing of the new Templeton Elementary School. I also feel that any decisions made on sending our students to Templeton should be made by the town and not the school committee. Put it to a vote and see where our town really stands. Please do not take away the heart of our town by sending our students to the Templeton School.
Thank you very much. Hold the applause, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy McEwen from Phillipston. I went to Phillipston Elementary School when it was a 4-room school, and we had 2 grades in each school. And our classes were probably maybe 20 at the most for the 2 grades. I may have misunderstood, but I thought I heard that you have 10 more families coming into Templeton. And I also heard that, and it was going to make a difference on the classes in school. I also heard that Templeton would have about 26 to 28 students per class. Phillipston would have 20 per class. A 20 per class ratio is much better than a 26 per classroom. And also, you're going to increase with that 10 new families coming into Templeton. Not to say that maybe we are going to have more children coming into Phillipston. I also have a hard time understanding where this is such a huge, huge decision on not only the families, the parents, the children, and the taxpayer, that, what are we, an 8-member school committee can make that decision. I feel it should be a town vote, and that it should be a fair vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Wood from Phillipston. I have another question. I don't know if you can answer it. But when you were building this new school, didn't you have to supply the state with what was going to happen to the school? How it was going to be staffed and populated?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't this a change in that?
Yes.
Could this throw your budget out of whack?
No.
Is this something town council has looked at?
Well, what we're doing here right now is getting information from the communities as to how they feel about the plan.
Yeah.
If it were well received, we would take the steps to look at what this change in the MSBA grant was. Right now, we're trying to find out if it's even something that is possible that people want to hear about. So the answer is that right now our job is to get input from the community, and then we'll go further if it needs to be done.
Do you have any idea how the state would call?
No. The state
So,
state has always been in favor of our children, so that's all we can say. We have no idea, no.
Okay, so if you lost your funding for the school presently, you'd have to wait for another one?
We wouldn't be in danger of doing that, no. Thank you. Feel free to come on down and sit in the front so we can go.
Hello.
Hello.
Gerhard Van Dryer, Phillipston. I was on the Finance Committee when we talked about, with Templeton, about the per pupil issue. And this seems to be what one of the biggest problems is between Templeton and Phillipston. The regional agreement was signed before the state came in and decided that Templeton was worse off than Phillipston and said that Phillipston is better off. And so they came up with this formula, which is unfair and has been challenged in many ways, and there's all sorts of problems with it, that says that Phillipston, the numbers that were put out were that Phillipston ends up paying $300,000 more per year to send their kids to the same school as Templeton does. And our regional agreement states, for the high school, that everything is supposed to be by per pupil. Everything else is per pupil except for the transportation is per pupil, everything else is per pupil except for the school funding, the amount. And so the problem was that, as Ruth said, that the third year, the Templeton administration, the selectmen decided that they were in financial difficulties. I can understand that. But they said, no, we're not going to honor the regional agreement. We're going to go with the state numbers. So in the process, from that point on, Phillipston has really fought against doing anything else with Templeton because Templeton has not lived up to their original agreement already. And they're stiffing Phillipston every step of the way. Now, if Templeton would like Phillipston to come to the table and work with them on this, well then Templeton should step up to the table and pay their fair share on a per pupil basis for everything, not just what they want and what the state says, oh, you can get away with this. It's not fair to Phillipston. And that's why Phillipston has consistently voted not to join a regional middle school program with Templeton because we already know that Templeton is going to push costs onto us that the state says, okay, Templeton is poor, Phillipston now needs to pony up even more money. And it's not fair for Phillipston to be sending the same kids to the same school and paying so much more for the same services. And that's why consistently Phillipston has voted no. We do not want anything to do with Templeton. We are stuck with you for the high school, but we do not want to do anything else. And that is why.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Polchapek?
Mary Polchapek, and I'm an educator. I was in Templeton and Phillipston. And I think my biggest concern is that we are here, and I feel really bad that we are pitting one town against another. Because we're here for our children, and you know what? We want to keep our children in our own communities. Templeton wants their children in Templeton. Phillipston wants their children in Phillipston. And it should be that way because your community is very important to the children. The parents, whatever you're involved in, they need to be in their own town. And Phillipston has done wonders with their children. Templeton does great things with their children. And it bothers me terribly to see the two towns going against each other. Right now, we should just be working. We've got a brand new school coming in. Phillipston's got their school. They've added on to it. I worked there. We worked really hard to get an addition. And you know what? We're here for the education of the children. That's the most important.
Thank
and
you.
Keep them in their own communities.
Thank you. We have another speaker. Okay, we can't answer any of these right now.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We haven't had any speakers from Templeton, so I'm seeking clarity. The ad hoc committee.
Yes,
Mike
I'd
Dixon,
like to
Templeton Center.
Thanks.
The ad hoc committee was charged by listening to the superintendent with poking holes in the plan. Was there a written charter or mission statement given to, and do you agree with the fact that the charter was to poke holes in the plan? Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, I was on that committee.
Okay.
And what we were charged with, you can say poking holes, or you can say to look at the design that is originally given to us and making sure that it is still the best design for children. So whether it's holes or making sure it's the best for children, we were looking at what is slotted to be
Okay, so
and
the
what could
school
be
committee
better.
agrees with the assessment that the superintendent gave?
I told, from the beginning,
Mhm.
we have said, this school committee in itself has only heard the results of a subcommittee.
Okay.
There have been no votes, no decisions, and I do not know how the
No, I
rest of the
understand that.
school
I just want to
committee
make sure
feels.
I understand what the charge of the ad hoc committee was. Did they report out? Did you have a vote by the members and a report out of any kind?
Oh, yes.
There was a vote taken?
Well, I don't know if there was a vote, but we all agreed.
So you reached consensus?
We reached consensus.
Did you have a letter with signatures on it reaching consensus or anything? Or is there any record of the consensus being reached?
There are the minutes to the
There are
meeting.
We have minutes for each of all of ours, but again, this is to bring the information in.
No, I get
So-
it. I'm just, as a committee, I'm on many in town.
Right.
And you have to keep records of your minutes.
Well, we have
and-
records, but
and-
our task was to get the ideas out, not necessarily consensus. That's
So-
what we're doing here today, is getting more ideas.
Okay, so then we don't have a recommendation from the committee because nothing was ever agreed to by the committee.
No?
No, okay, so there is no recommendation.
No.
All right, so then it really boils down to just public input as to what we would like to see done with the school.
The full committee, the school committee has a meeting tomorrow night,
It does.
and that will be it may or may not come up.
Okay, I just want to understand the mechanics of how all this went together, because I heard many, many different stories about who was doing what and saying what and what was being done and what wasn't being done. I just, for the clarification for the people in the auditorium about what happened there. Well, for my own 10 cents, I love the people of Phillipston, always have, dear friends from the community. I agree with the fact that twice now they have voted not to be involved with the town at the elementary level. I respect their wishes. The town of Templeton voted to invest their tax dollars in building this new building. I don't believe it would be fair to the residents of the town of Templeton to start bringing children from Phillipston, even though they'd be more than welcome. But from a taxpayer's standpoint, I'm not paying to have Phillipston children come to Templeton Center School. Now, if the decision was reached that we wanted to start bringing children from Phillipston to the new Templeton Center School, there would have to be some arrangements made for taxes. I mean, if they're not paying into that school, I don't understand why children would be going there.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as a point of clarification, I think it was not last week, but the last week of before vacation, the subcommittee reported out.
We reported out, did we take an actual vote as a consensus that we recorded?
I don't remember.
Not to my recollection.
remember. I'd have to
However,
look. I'd have
that
to look.
wasn't our task.
No.
Our task was not to reach consensus. It was to present ideas to the school committee. So thank you.
Yeah, Dennis O'Brien, 259 Ballinville Road, Templeton. Now, in your school meeting tomorrow night, will you be discussing this, what we're doing tonight?
What we have on the agenda is to debrief this forum.
Right.
So we will have we'll talk about what we heard.
Now, will it be sent anything out to the taxpayers to see what their opinion on this is for the new school?
We haven't gotten that far. That's not,
No, I said, will there be?
well, if depending on the decision, that definitely we'd have to make everybody informed.
See, my question would be, I respect everybody on the school committee, but I don't think the school committee should be able to make the decision on what we do with our children in these two towns. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, hi.
My name is Richard Egan. I own 2 properties in Templeton and 1 in Phillipston. So the reason why I bought a property in Phillipston was because of my wife. And she fell in love with the elementary school in Phillipston and wanted to go there. She investigated, she learned about the school, and she fell in love with the community. We picked a home that was close to the school so that it would be close to my daughter. And then this just kind of pulled the rug out from underneath us last night when we heard about it. I haven't heard one positive community member stand up, or one person stand up and say, this is a positive thing, I think we should go forward with this new plan. Just wondering how much negativity you need to hear before you think that the community is definitely against this. Sounds like both sides are against this. Financially, I'm on both ends of it, but personally, on just a personal matter, I'm very interested in keeping my daughter, or starting my daughter in the small community in Phillipston, staying within our town, as everyone else from Phillipston seems to be, and everybody from Templeton seems to want to keep their kids. So how much do we need to hear before we say, this is a bad idea, let's just keep it the way it was?
Well, Richard, what we want to do is give everyone a chance who has an opinion to express it, and that's what we're doing here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Well,
Hi, I'm Diana Wood from Phillipston, and it seemed as if one of the big obstacles was the unified arts teachers. Have it been looked into that there might be a part-time unified arts teachers to come to Phillipston?
Yeah, that could be under consideration. Thank you.
And if you have school choice, those children coming into our nice little Phillipston school might help alleviate some of the costs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Tom Speck. I'm from Phillipston. You probably know me from America's Most Wanted. First, I'd like to say from the bottom of my heart, because I know how hard it is being on committees, and sometimes the things you have to go through, I'll end it there. They did a great job, and from what I understand from the presentation tonight, they did what they were supposed to do, or charged with. I want to let it be known that I've been an educator for 40 years in the same school system, so that says a lot about me and my either I'm a fool or it meant a lot to me and the kids. I want to say right now that there is a committee, Phillipston Memorial School Committee, that is addressing the shortfalls of Phillipston Memorial. New roof, state-of-the-art cafeteria, handicapped bathrooms, and literally doing away with, I affectionately call, the cellar. So I come up here tonight and I've heard it all. I've heard all the rumors. I've had people leave things in my mailbox to read. I've talked to people who were on the committee. And the bottom line is, I really, really, really think, pardon me, from an educational standpoint of view, that the kids should stay in Phillipston. Our kids should stay in Phillipston, respecting Templeton. Their kids should stay in Templeton, and will continue. Phillipston has always, always stepped up to the plate. Whatever they wanted, money for a roof, money for a security system. We're going to have state-of-the-art security system in that building such that the police and the fire can see on camera at their different stations what's going on if there is an emergency. So I really feel that we're doing our part to keep that school state-of-the-art. And if we have to, and there's additional staff, and it means money, it always seems to come down to money. You know, we can say it's the kids, but it's always the money. Phillipston might step up to the plate, as we've done in the past, and pay for a teacher separately. So I guess my bottom line is, you know, I've seen so many PowerPoints in my life, both educationally and other committees or whatever, and it's a nice PowerPoint. I suppose if it was on YouTube, it might get a couple, 3 hits, in all due respect.
How do you know that it's not, Tom?
How do I know? Well, I know you'll look. But like I said, my bottom line, Phillipston kids should stay in Phillipston. And there's one thing that I kept seeing in the PowerPoint, because I paid close attention, because from a financial standpoint, taxpayer, et cetera, I kept seeing cost. And then I kept hearing, well, this has already been figured out, and it's not going to cost. Well, this has already been figured out, and it's not going to cost. On and on. But I haven't seen any cost of new plan versus leave it alone. And even if it costs more to leave it alone, I'm quite sure, as in the past, historically, Phillipston will step up the plate, pay for the override, vote it. They'll be right there to vote it. They'll come up with the money in their budget if they have to. And I guess I've thrown myself under the bus, but I think I came here tonight not to say anything, but unfortunately I got charged up, and I figured I had to say something. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I know the school committee does a phenomenal job. I've worked with you all in reference to your finance subcommittee, and you always come up with a budget that's more than fair for the kids and the towns. Personally, I think maybe we could pay a little more, but that's another story. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I think within 5 minutes, if we have no other comments, then we will adjourn. To the microphone. If you have something you want to say, please sit in the front row so that you're here and we won't adjourn without you.
Tom, you're really tall. Noticed. So I'm Linda Ellis. I live in Phillipston. I'm an educator. I lived in Phillipston 30 years. I used to teach in this district. My kids went to this district. Ms. Triflo was a fine teacher for my son. And I have very strong feelings about where the kids should go also. I also am a researcher. I taught at Worcester State College. I did a lot of research. So I know about transitions. I know about sizes in the classroom. And I know there's a lot of research out there that isn't done in schools because it's not allowed. So even though we want to say it's better to have class sizes that are under 20, under 30. I remember Phillipston School, when my youngest son was in school, had such a large class that teachers were begging for another teacher. And they eventually came up with it, and they had to go all the way up because the classes were too large. So we did provide for that. And there's been a lot of things that we've provided for in Phillipston with additions. So we put a lot of effort into it. The townspeople have always done that. The Templeton people, I know a lot of them, and they put a lot of effort in their town too. So as an educator and a townsperson, my vote is for the kids to stay in Phillipston and in Templeton. And I know that Mr. Cassavant, Dr. Cassavant, is a whiz at figuring out how to save money on busing. And I'm very frugal myself, so I'm depending upon him to figure out a way to save money with that. And maybe Phillipston has to provide a bus for our own kids. But that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Leclerc. I live in Templeton. My grandparents lived here. My parents lived here. I was born and raised here, so my family goes back generations. And Mrs. Flynn did a beautiful job describing how well Phillipston children get out into their community. So I just want to make it clear that children in Templeton do that too. Our third graders do a coin drive every year. We go and we shop at Walmart for a local family. We had over $600 this year, and we give it to an anonymous family in our school. When my daughter was in kindergarten 2 years ago, she went to the library every month like Phillipston does. We still have our parade in Baldwinville Center and Templeton Center at Halloween time when they're dressed up in their costumes so their parents and their grandparents can come out and see them. Our fourth graders go to the Baldwinville nursing home every month. My class the other day went outside and just picked up all the trash off of the playground because it was Earth Day. So I guess as a town resident and as a parent, I feel one way about how we should vote. And then as an educator, personally, I feel a different way. So I'm kind of affected and honestly not really sure where I stand quite yet. I just want people to really understand that no matter how our children are grouped from both communities, that because of the teachers we have and the parents we have and the community that both towns have, they're still going to have that sense of community and giving back. Whether we merge or whether we don't, it happens both places. So I don't think anyone should be concerned of losing that small town feel.
Thank you. Okay, this will be the last minute for a speaker. Seeing none. Oh, okay, well,
as someone who just learned about this last night, I would just request that if there are any further forums to get community involvement, that you guys really try to spread the word as much as possible, because you know, as I said, I'm a resident of Phillipston, but I also own property in Templeton. I didn't receive any mailers. I didn't get any notification. I found out about this by chance. So this is all happening, as far as I'm concerned, behind closed doors. So you guys really need to work to get the information out that this event was happening. There's hardly anyone here. And that if an event like this happens again, that you really, really need to spend the effort, time, and even money if you have to get the word out about this.
Thank you.
It's important.
Thank you. At this time, I want to thank everyone for their input. As you heard, we have a regular scheduled school committee meeting tomorrow night. And I'm sorry, we're all done with. Is this?
I just have one question.
Is this quick? Yeah.
I thought this was a public forum.
It is a public forum,
Okay,
but we have been announcing that.
I
we're
know,
done.
and he got up as I wasn't
Okay.
going to be rude and get up in front of him. Sorry, I thought this was a public forum, excuse me. I was going to address the school committee. I just wanted to know that if you are going to make a decision, that you...
Can we have a name and address, please?
Sure. Tammy Anderson, Pale Factory Road, Templeton, Mass.
Yep.
I just want to know that if you are going to make a decision, that are you going to inform people prior to you making that? If you make the decision, to tell people before, so we could have a vote. I still think that people need to have a vote in the towns, because that's what we voted to have the school.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. To conclude, we have a school committee meeting tomorrow night. We have this on the agenda to discuss and to debrief from our conversation tonight. We will, if we proceed further, we will make sure that all notifications are given to all community and not only school people but community people. That is our mission and our goal. So we will be better at that. But again, it's on the agenda for tomorrow night. I thank everyone for coming. Feel free, if you have additional comments, to talk to school committee members. And I thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion we adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.